All right, welcome to the Fitness Freedom Podcast. I'm really excited because I have a special guest. Today we have Kathlena, the Allergy Chef. Welcome, Kathlena.
Thank you for having me. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I just went on a vacation to Miami this past weekend, so I'm feeling calm and full of fun,
Okay.
full of love and sunshine. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I might actually be headed down to Miami in a couple of weeks. So,
Really? Awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
The beach is
So,
great. Where are you coming from? Where are you?
currently in Utah and got some big projects and just kind of wrapping that up and then might be moving on to something down there or might be headed north instead. We'll see in a few weeks.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. Adventurous living. So, can you introduce yourself and really share a little bit more of your story?
Yeah, I would love to do that. So I'm Kathlena, known as the Allergy Chef, and the reason that that name stuck is because I personally manage more than 200 food allergies and food intolerances, and can't drink most water. I was given 30 days to live because my condition had grown so poor, and I survived. And after surviving, I was like, you know what? Everything that's in my head needs to get out there because it can help a lot of people. I have hundreds of symptoms related to food. Some of them are anaphylactic and some are not. I have a lot of non-traditional symptoms, including extreme unexplainable weight gain. To give you an example, I turned 40 last year. So, you kind of have to like have that context in mind. When
Absolutely.
I was in kindergarten, I was super morbidly obese in a time where children were not overweight, right? Like when we look at those charts where it shows like the progression of obesity in childhood, back then, little kids were not the way they are today. So it's like you kind of have to keep that in mind. I was definitely an anomaly, right? And it wasn't until somewhere in my 20s that I was properly diagnosed. And I went from over 450 pounds and dropped over 200 pounds in a year, just not eating food that I was allergic to or intolerant to. I
Mm-hmm.
literally, you'll love this. Um, I lost all that weight and never went to the gym. Like, didn't go to the gym, didn't exercise a bit,
Yeah.
didn't do anything. And, you know, obviously there's a lot more to it than that. But when you have a body that's not functioning well, you have a body that's not functioning well. And it doesn't matter what you do if you don't fix the foundation, right? Like when we think about how a house is built, if you build it on a poor foundation and an earthquake comes, goodbye house, right? The body is kind of the same when you think about it. At least for me, that was very much what it was like. So throughout life, doctors definitely misdiagnosed me. Um, it's like the typical stuff, right? But it wasn't until it was suggested, like, hey, I wonder if gluten could be an issue for you. This was like before gluten was as big as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like, oh, that's an interesting thought. As because I had already known about like food allergy, food intolerance because of my kids and stuff like that. And so I actually ended up doing a whole bunch of tests just out of pocket because you can order them yourself. And so I just started ordering tests and learned as much as I could about everything. And next thing you know, so I was like, oh, well, would you look at this? And everything just started to fall into place. Um, but at the same time, I don't want anybody to think, oh, it's just like this hunky dory thing. You stop eating these foods and you get better. For some people, yes, you do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was a doctor I had listened to a while back, and he said something so profound. He says, the younger a child is when the disease starts, and the longer it goes undiagnosed, the more likely it is to become permanent.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, hindsight being 2020, I probably could have been diagnosed as early as age 2 or 3,
Mm.
right? But it went on for well over 20 years.
20 years.
So
Wow.
the odds of it being permanent in my case are pretty reasonable odds, or at least a portion of it being permanent, which I can attest to, right? Like I have never hit 100% healed. Will I? I don't know. There's always some new therapy and some new this and some new that. And I have looked into them and I am curious and I might try something here or there in the future. But, as of this moment, it's kind of like, well, this is as good as it's going to get for right now, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it. I'm going to be happy with it and move on, right?
Mhm.
Um, that's just kind of my take on it. So that's the long introduction of who I am
Mhm.
and a little bit about me and what brought us together.
What were other symptoms that you dealt with from childhood? I know weight can be a factor, but it's not the only factor. So, what other pretty restrictive or painful or difficult symptoms did you deal with before you were diagnosed or before you realized you had these food allergies?
So a lot of mental health issues, but again, context is important. I grew up in an incredibly abusive household, so it's like, which one came first, the
Right,
chicken,
right, right, of course.
right? But to tell you an interesting story, so post diagnosis, I was driving one day. Mind you, I had lived with suicidal depression from childhood. Like basically, it's all I ever knew. So I was
Wow.
driving in the car one day. Actually, before that, I'd woken up one day and for the first time ever, I didn't want to wake up and like jump off of a bridge. And I was like, oh, well, that's really interesting. I wonder if this is what normal people feel like. Like it was so normal for me
Mhm.
that not having that thought was like, whoa, what a trip, right? And so fast forward a month or two or whatever it was, I'm driving in my car, and this was after like a food trial. And I'd gone from like being totally neutral mentally to suddenly thinking, I wonder how fast I should be driving to plow into the center divider and die. Like that was just the thought.
Mhm.
Like because there had been so much clarity, I kind of went, oh, is there a connection between food and mental health? And for me, because I had been doing so much food journaling, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated diagnostic tools on the planet, right? If you food journal like beautifully, perfectly, day in, day out, it becomes one of the most amazing tools because you can go back and assess and look for patterns and all that sort of stuff. And so once I started knowing like what types of patterns to look for, they started showing up like
That's cool.
big time, right? And you kind of go, oh, well, that's a symptom. That's a symptom. So pretty much for me, it was head to toe type things. Um, Obviously severe headaches, migraines. I would wake up and look like I had pink eye, but it wasn't actually pink eye.
Wow.
Um, Severe bloody noses all the time, ENT issues, chronic sore throats, canker sores in the mouth, difficulty swallowing, difficulty breathing, all sorts of just like inside and outside pain, literally head to toe.
Mm.
There are certain foods where, if I eat it, like literally my left knee feels like I'm going to die. I'm in so much pain, but only the left knee, nothing else. It's completely localized to the left knee. Different
Mm.
food, I'm fine. I also have, um, so essentially like pain receptors misfire. So what's really interesting, and this doesn't happen to everyone, I'm just so lucky. I'm so blessed to be able to share this with you, right?
Yay, yes.
Okay. So my intestines get so inflamed that I can't feel it in my intestines, but I feel it in my back to the point where I can't walk. I am
Wow.
in so much physical pain that I can't walk. And then once the allergens clear out of my system, I can walk again. It's like fantastic. I can walk. Great. Um, I just call it killer lower back pain. I have no other word for it. But it's not the same as like, you lifted something heavy wrong and threw your back out,
Yeah.
but it's pain that is so severe and because of where it hits you, like in terms of the misfire, because like if this is your intestines, right? So you've got like your intestines and then your back is right on the other side. And
Mm.
so where it is in the intestines hits the back muscle in just the right spot that you literally can't like physically function in terms of like just motor function and
Because
like
of the inflammation
yeah,
happening
like
in your
the the physiological part of it. Um yeah, I have no other way to describe it than that. But it's actually it's a pain receptor misfire because
hmm
the receptors are just so close together. So it's kind of wild because I'll be like, oh man, my back is killing me. And then I'll be like, no, it's not. My intestines are killing me, but I can feel
Mm,
it in my intestines. Uh,
yeah.
but I also
So,
have like a spastic colon. So I'll tell you, I'd rather have the back pain than the gut pain because the gut pain, it feels like there's a combination of like a garden hose, a rattlesnake, and like someone with a whip inside of your intestines. And so like you're sitting minding your own business and suddenly your intestines are just like whatcha like that. And they just like grab at you and snap at you and do these horrible things and you're doubled over in pain. It's that or you can't walk. Like pick one. And so I'm
mm,
like, oh, I'll just take the can't walk and I'll just sit down and wait. I'll just wait it out, right?
and ideally, neither of those.
Oh, well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ideally,
Ideally neither.
ideally,
Ideally
neither of those.
neither. Yeah.
Right. So I bet people listening to this are hearing, like, oh, yeah, I can relate to some of this. I have these unexplained health
Yeah.
issues. So how do you mentioned food journaling, and that's actually something that I help my clients with because I do also agree with you. There's so much value, not just physically, but like mentally and emotionally and understanding your patterns. We can talk about that. But for someone listening, like, okay, I want to know more. You figured out your food allergies and you feel better. How do I figure out my food allergies? So could you give
So
us a
the
few ways to do that?
Yeah, so the first thing to do, obviously start your food journal. What does that look like? It's everything you eat, you drink. It has to be time stamped. That's really important. You need to do a transit test. So transit time is really important. That tells us how
Mm,
long does it take something to pass through your entire system. So you want to eat something that's really obvious, like not to be crass, but you need to be able to see it when you pass it. So
hmm
either something like corn kernels, chia seeds, kiwi, because the seed's there, something that you can just see. Or you can eat like beets because it changes the color of stool and you can actually see so the nice thing too is like you can see how long the actual transit takes, but also how long it takes from start to completion of the exit. That
Mm.
makes sense. You know what I mean? Because
Yep.
like sometimes like you pass something, but it's not completely passed.
Yep.
So in the case of like, dyeing your stool red, you can see, oh, it stayed red for 6 hours. So you had the 16 hours of transit time plus 6 hours of exit time. And that timing is actually really important because it helps us correlate to your food journal symptoms versus when you ate something and how long it took to affect you. Because so a traditional food allergy, the symptoms show from the moment you either touch it or eat it for about 4 hours. There's a 4 hour window where we usually say it's a food allergy, which is IgE mediated. There are five Igs: IgA, IgM, IgG, IgE, and I forget the fifth one, but there's five of them.
hmm
Um, and so I believe it's M and G that are no A and G that are more related to food intolerance. So food intolerance can actually affect you for up to 28 days. This is
Right.
why the journal is key because we need to know like what's affecting you and when and for how long, right? And so your journal um does everything you eat or drink, and then everything about you from head to toe. Anything that could be a symptom, even something as small as like your lip twitches, right? Because that's
Mm,
a muscle misfire. Okay. And that can either be related to some sort of deficiency or something you've eaten. And you
right.
can figure out the pattern if you keep the journal. Sleep patterns, even sleep disturbances. For example, I get the worst night terrors, like wake up screaming, crying in your sleep night terrors from certain foods. Okay. Um, so you have to track all of that. You need to track if you not only have sleep disturbances, but like sleepwalking, waking frequently, all of that sort of stuff. So anything related to sleep. If you get one of those handy dandy ring thingamajigs that people like these days, that could help you in theory. Doesn't necessarily help everyone, but it's a good
hmm
tool.
hmm
You could invest in something what's called the food marble. That's a really cool tool for helping with diagnostics. It helps you understand potential food intolerance and then fermentation in the gut. It can also help you diagnose possibly leaky gut. Not always, but it can be helpful.
hmm
Um, and that works on a phone. And you blow into this little breath meter thingamajig and it connects. It's really cool. That's a really helpful device. But so yeah, your food journal keeps everything. From there, you want to do all the tests. You want to do blood tests, skin tests, hair, mineral, heavy metals, gut test, 1 day and 3 day collections, oat test. You want to check for everything, right? Every kind of dietary deficiency possible. Have you been exposed to heavy metals? Are you holding on to them? You want to know if your detox organs are working properly. You want to understand, like, even just like your omega reserves. Do you have enough of those? One thing that was interesting that I learned about me, and this is something you could probably appreciate. Guess what my vitamin D level was the first time it was tested?
I bet it was super low.
Come on, guess. 0 to 100. What was I?
Could you be negative?
That is such a good guess. I was four.
4.
Four.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like rock bottom.
It's like your
Um,
body wasn't absorbing it or getting it in any way.
yeah, I basically absorbed. I was deficient in every single major and minor everything. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, except for like a couple things. Like, interestingly, I had normal thyroid function, which you wouldn't
Uh,
expect for someone like me. In fact, a lot of doctors would look at me and go, "Oh, it's totally the thyroid." Nah, it actually wasn't. It was a
yeah,
bunch of food.
it's fun to
And
throw
that's
doctors off.
Yeah, that's one of the things about me is I pretty much mimic all major and minor illnesses. I even mimic some types of cancers, Job's disease, Raynaud's, rare little things, big things. I mimic them with all of my symptoms. So that's why I always tell people get tested. Like, keep
Mhm.
your journal. That's super important. But the tests, don't eat and don't cherry pick with a specialist, right? Get all the tests because a gut test won't tell you if you're deficient in vitamin D and won't tell you if you're being poisoned with heavy metals and won't tell you if you've been chronically exposed to mold and you're holding on to like all these, bits of mold and you need to detox from that. Like, you need to do every test. You need to understand where you are because
Okay.
that's going to help you form like your plan of attack, right?
Okay.
Because one thing you might learn about yourself is maybe you don't have any food allergies or food intolerances, but it turns out you've got chronic mold exposure and heavy metal toxins.
Or you could
That's,
have a chronic illness or a genetic
yeah, you could
disease
be
or
like
something.
something completely
Yeah,
different,
yeah,
right?
right,
Like, you could be
yeah.
something completely different. In fact, if you do all the tests and they all come back normal, honestly, that's when you should be worried. That's when you're like, oh, geez, if I don't have like
Something
these
else
really
going on.
obvious things over here, I need to start booking it in with some specialists who can do some hyper special tests like MRI scans and CT scans and all these
Right.
different other like full body scans and things that can go a little bit deeper. So that's really for me. How did I figure it all out? Tested till the cows came home. And the tests were really obvious. And what's wild is I popped as allergic and intolerant to so much food that we thought the tests were wrong.
Wow.
And so that's when the food trial started. And I started failing every single trial, like every single one. And after like 30 or 40 fails, you kind of go, and you're sick as a dog, you go, maybe they were right. Right. Like, even though that seems improbable, if I'm failing everything that it said I would fail, maybe that's the answer. And it's time to start treating the tests as if they were right. And
Yeah.
as soon as I started doing that, things started getting better.
So, Kathlena, food journaling, also noticing when things exit and the transit time, then
Yep.
taking these tests, as many as you can.
Yeah.
And then once you have all that information, so we're at the point where, okay, I have this information through the tests and the food journaling. Where do you go from there? How do you start dealing with like, what does that healing process look like?
It's a good question, and it's kind of a big one in the sense of your tests will determine your next steps,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
So, like, for example, I mean, obviously I was broken in a lot of ways. Um, you know, and I monitored a lot of things. So like I did the food marble. I even checked my weight several times a day, checked temperature several times a day because I consistently chronically run under like borderline dangerous too low on body temperature. I can't regulate temperature. And what's wild about that one, when I was a kid I couldn't regulate, but in the opposite direction. I ran so hot that I could never like wear proper winter clothing kind of a thing. And then at some point, the switch just literally flipped. And all of a sudden, I was freezing to death all the time.
Mm.
Uh, little things like that. Also pay attention to things like hair loss. I started losing hair at a very young age, but no one really noticed, to the point where, like, as an adult, it's like, those Homer Simpson three hairs,
Yeah.
right? You're like, man, I'm pushing Homer Simpson levels here. I have to hold on to those three, like,
Yeah.
you pay attention to everything, right? Um, so for me, I took it test by test, right? So, for example, I knew what I was allergic and intolerant to, eliminated those foods. That's like number one easiest thing I could do. Number two, so I have a severe corn allergy. The thing about a corn allergy is you're not just allergic to corn, you're allergic to everything that is made from corn.
And that's
There
a
are
lot.
more than 250 uses for corn in food medicine and agriculture. When you are allergic to corn, it's it's the kind of thing I wouldn't wish on like the worst human on the planet. Like it's horrific. So finding food that is truly corn free has to be the number one priority for someone like me. Meanwhile, one of the tests that stood out to me the most, it was like a gut diagnosis dysbiosis type of test, right? And they did it by like four stages, stage four being the worst. I was like the worst of the worst. And to give you an idea of how long it takes, it took me 7 years to go from stage four to stage one.
Wow.
Okay. Mind you, though, I was working with both hands tied behind my back and a blindfold because when you are allergic to so much and you only have like super limited safe foods, etc., it means that um, you can't take the regular supplements that most people are going to take. You can't do the normal things most people would do, which is why I say your test results are going to determine your next steps. Because when you look at, let's say your test results say you are low in omega 3, right?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. Start either eating foods rich in omegas or start with an omega supplement, whichever makes sense, or do a
Hmm.
combination of both. For
Hmm.
some people, supplementing is a bad idea, right? Like either because you can't handle what's in the supplement or because maybe you're not so far off that, a supplement taking it might end up overdosing you to the
Mm.
point where you need it, right? So each item has to be taken one by one, and then you look at something like where if you're me and your vitamin D is 4, you're like, oh, okay, well, you're not gonna eat your way out of that problem. You need to supplement your way out of that problem, right? So then you
Hmm.
have to try to find a truly corn-free version of this supplement, which is really difficult and blah blah blah, all the things. I eventually got it up to like I think 28 was the highest I was able to get it, but then it dropped back down to like 5 or 2 or something. I don't know, like it was pretty low. So like you just got to pick and choose your battles. Like there comes a point where you're like, because you're just like if you're me and you're just low on everything, like you're low on A, all the B's, like you're borderline low on C, you're low on like magnesium, and like you're just low on like everything, right?
Hmm.
So you have to start choosing from there what makes me feel good, right? Because you go so long understanding what makes you feel bad, right? Like let's say you wake up every single day with a headache and you're nauseated, right? And you finally get yourself to this point where you're headache free and you're nausea free. Hey, that's awesome. Whatever you're doing, keep doing that, right? And then try to expand on that. So let's say you notice if you start your day off with a cup of steamed green vegetables, you feel like $1,000,000. Okay, cool. Well, what happens if we have a little bit of green veg at lunch and then a little bit of green veg at dinner? Do we feel like $1,000,000 the whole time? If so, maybe we should do that, right? It's meeting yourself where you are
Mm.
because unfortunately, like there is no one size fits all solution to this,
Absolutely.
right? Um, and when you find your solution, again, the best thing to do is take those test results and then just pick them apart. Okay, well, I'm low on this. Because for me, it was if this is what I'm low on, which foods naturally are high in this item, right?
Hmm.
Also,
Hmm.
one of the biggest tips I can give you, eat clean, simple, organic foods, and then pay attention to foods that you crave. Here's the thing. If you are currently consuming the standard American diet, sad. right? Your craving receptors and signals are going to be blown way off. Like you have no real connect because your body has been hijacked by engineered foods, right? And I'm not like saying that to be funny, mean, or uh judgmental. It's not that. Like, for example, I think people should eat cookies and cake. I just think they need to eat the organic version, right? So don't eat foods that are so hijacky of your brain, but instead the clean version. Because once you do that, it is 10 times, actually, probably like 100 times easier to understand your cravings. And I'm talking like those deep down weird ones where you're like, I cannot stop obsessing over eggs right now, right? Like the
Mhm.
weird ones. So for me, interestingly, eggs was one of them. I test as allergic to eggs, and yet I wanted nothing but eggs. Now, there's two schools of thought behind this. Number one, for some people with certain types of complex cases and medical conditions and food allergies, your body essentially behaves like a drug addict, right? The drugs are bad for you. But when you have the drugs, certain receptors in the brain go off. And so it kind of tricks you into thinking the drugs are good for you. And then
Mhm.
when you stop taking the drugs, you go through drug withdrawal. And you're like, but if I just had more drugs, I'd feel better again.
Mhm.
And so you have more drugs and you feel better again. For
Mhm.
some people, that's how their body responds to the allergen or the intolerant food that they're intolerant to. Okay.
Mhm.
Doesn't happen to everyone, but happens to some people. So you have to be off of it long enough to understand whether or not you're having like a withdrawal reaction or a true craving. And this can take months to really like clear it out of your system and understand. But once you get clear of the food, so for me, I was clear of eggs for like years. Okay. But I could not stop obsessing over eggs. And it just sort of hit me one day. Well, I ignored it because I was like, I'm allergic to eggs. Why would I eat eggs? And so I was due for another round of testing. Guess what I learned?
Did you lose your egg allergy?
No, I did not. But guess what else I learned?
What?
Everything that I was currently very deficient in could all be fixed by one food.
Eggs.
Yep.
So
So then
your
I went,
body was craving the nutrients in eggs. That's so
exactly.
clever of your
It
body.
was right. It was literally screaming out for like the one and what was so wild is I was deficient in like all these like really random things, but eggs would literally cure like all but like one of them. And so I was like, all right, well, let's see what happens. So I go out and I find literally the one farm selling truly corn-free eggs, which is a really big deal. Okay. To find truly, truly corn-free eggs. And I could not tolerate egg white, but I could tolerate the egg yolk. And so I just kind of loaded up on egg yolk for as long as I could tolerate it. And then one day I lost the tolerance almost overnight, stopped eating them, felt fine. And that's the
Wow.
thing. Like, it was literally like my body said, listen, I'm going to meet you in the middle. I know we can't eat this food, but we need the nutrients so bad that I'm not going to throw a fit if you just give me this one
That's
thing that I need
great.
for a little
That's
while.
great.
And so I did, right? But at the same time, so are you familiar with toxic fat syndrome?
No.
Okay. It's a very little known thing. It's not really talked about. So let's talk about it. Toxic fat syndrome is kind of what it sounds like. Okay. Imagine, if you will, gaining loads of weight, but whilst being bombarded with things you are allergic and intolerant to. What do those fat cells contain? Things that are toxic to your system. Okay. And so for me, as I lost the weight, I actually got sicker because literally I was being flooded with the toxicity from the actual fat cells. So, having studied this for a while, I came up with a very simple theory. What if you had the fat removed? Would you stop feeling sick? So, I actually had plastic surgery done and had a whole bunch of just like excessive fat. This was after I lost a bunch of weight, had a bunch of fat removed. When I tell you I felt like day and night difference, I felt day and night difference. So I usually have to wear a full face respirator because of the environmental, chemical, airborne allergies. And for about 6 months, I didn't have to wear a respirator. It was like my body could finally go, whoo, okay, I have a break. I'm not being attacked internally. So all these other factors aren't as severe. So if you were to take me into a grocery store pre-op, I was on the verge of collapsing without a respirator just because of all of the chemicals. And I'm talking like an organic grocery store, not even like Safeway or whatever they call them these days, like, where it's like full stuff. We're talking like clean, pure, open, blah, 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 all the things. I was on the verge of collapse. With my respirator, I was okay. Um, Post-op, I did not need a respirator from like 3 days after the operation forward for about 6 months. It was amazing. It was like, it was the coolest scientific experiment I could ever do on myself. Am I telling everyone to go get plastic surgery? Oh my goodness, no. What I am saying though is that the human body is amazing. Your body is amazing. You have to learn what your body needs, what your body does. There
Mm,
is no one size fits all. No two people are the same. What worked for me, like some of the top level stuff is going to work for everyone. Everyone will benefit from getting tested. Everyone will benefit from food journaling. And that's kind of where our journeys together stop. And then they just sort of like go down those forked
mm,
paths, right?
mhm.
Perhaps I'm going down the food allergy path, and maybe you're going down the mold path, or somebody else is going down the heavy metal path, or somebody else is going down the leaky gut path. And the thing is, too, is like, I think there's this misconception that, well, there's a few misconceptions, right? Um, there's a lot of things that revolve around weight, but sometimes people think, well, I'm not overweight, therefore I must be healthy. Let me tell you, you can be a perfect weight and still be sick chronically in different ways, right?
And you can be in a
Um,
bigger body and be healthy too.
exactly. Like it's just like there's no again, there's no one size fits all.
Yeah, that's an important
Everybody
message.
is different, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, unexplained weight gain was directly linked to these food allergies and food intolerances. But for the next person, maybe they're an emotional eater and they need therapy. And that's what's their hang up. And that's what they need. For somebody else, maybe that's just the blueprint for their body, right?
Yep.
There,
And it could
there's
be
a
healthy
bell
for them.
curve,
Yeah.
right? There is a bell curve for a reason. And the bell curve applies to everything, right? In fact, when you think about just weight in general, the growth chart, like kids' growth charts, for example, people sometimes give them too much, what's the word? Attention, weight. I don't want to say weight because it sounds like there's a pun waiting there, but that's not it. But sometimes people look at, well, your child is on the 87th percentile. Oh no, right? But you need context. Has your child been at the 87th percentile since birth? Because if they were a big baby and perhaps both parents are like really tall or whatever, right? Maybe 87 is their number. The danger is if your kid goes from like the fifth percentile to the 87th percentile in a 6 month span, right? Or if they go from 87 down to 17 in a 6 month span
Hmm.
without some other type of significant change. Like if they
Yeah.
hit their growth spurt and then, it sort of drops them down, that we can expect. But if they're the same height and suddenly rapidly start losing all this weight or start rapidly gaining all this weight, that's when we can go, oh, now their growth curve should be looked at. What have they been at? So it's all about context, right? These are
Hmm.
nuanced things. And so we can't, it's the same thing with like seed oils. I recently gave like this mini TED talk in an article I was writing about seed oils because the question was, are seed oils bad for me? And I was like, so here's the thing about seed oils. Are seed oils bad for you? Maybe. But what about excess sodium and excess sugar and not exercising and not taking care of yourself and not getting enough sleep every day and not getting enough sunshine and not grounding? Like, can we really in a narrow scope, take our pointer finger and say, it was the seed oils? Or do we need to maybe like point all 10 fingers at all 10 things and kind of go, maybe
Hmm.
it was a collection of things that
Right.
work together to form this problem? And that's really what it comes down to, right? Like, I don't think we can ever blame, well, okay, if you have an IgE mediated food allergy and you are severely allergic to milk, and that's the only thing you were allergic to, yes, we can literally point the finger at the
Right.
one,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
For people with any other non-obvious kind of condition, we can't just point the finger at one thing, right? Like in my case, can we point the finger at one thing? Absolutely not. We just
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
right? We have to look at the whole picture and we have to say, well, there is some heavy metals. Like, for example, my lead was like, I think 5 times above the limit. Like, my lead was off the chart. And then I was talking with this friend who's, she's a doctor, like a UK certified, board certified, blah, 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 all the things. And she's like, if you detox wrong from lead, you can't, like, you risk paralysis, right? And I was like, thanks for the heads up. Like, there's so many different facets that we have to look at. And so
Hmm. Yeah.
going back to like the idea of seed oils, like, should we be fearing any one food? No, of course not. Like, that's the thing. I think in all honesty, what we need to be looking at is in terms of like, if we want to be judgy about food, which we shouldn't, but if we wanted to be, we need to be like, what's the soil health looking like? And are we looking at like organic versus like food covered in glyphosate and pesticides and all these things that we know are carcinogenic and we know can have lasting impacts on our health, right?
Yeah.
Because like, should you give up the things you love? No, it's just about moderation. And even if you're like, okay, well, what if I don't want to go organic? Okay, then don't. Look
Yeah.
at all the other things you can do in your life, right? Because it's kind of like,
Absolutely.
how they say smoking is so bad and it's going to kill you? But then at the same time, we look at the blue zones, like areas in the world where people are living to past 100, they're all smoking like there's no tomorrow. And I'm like, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Here we're saying it's so bad. And over there, they're like, it is not that bad because I exercise, I eat fermented foods, I take care of my gut health. I eat pretty clean. I
I
run a
have
couple miles,
community. I have
right? Like I have all
community.
these
I
things going
live in
on.
a, yeah, fresh
Yeah.
air.
And I smoke a pack a week. That's
Yeah.
my one thing,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
they're fine. Okay, should everybody smoke a pack a week? No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that we can never point the finger at one thing. And sometimes we're told, oh, this one thing is going to kill you, when the reality is, nah, like,
Yes, I
it's
agree.
going to ding you a little bit, but it probably won't kill you as long as it's your one thing,
And that's
right?
why we're talking about context. And I want to bring up a point here because you did mention, you know, clean foods and eating organic foods. And we're talking about this huge subject of food allergies and things that harm our bodies and the environment. And it is such a cumulative thing, right? Depending on our
Yeah.
bodies. And I see what you're saying about like how so much of our food is chemically engineered to be addictive. And we're just in an environment. I'm speaking for America because I live here and I've been in other
Yeah.
countries. So I'm mainly speaking for America because I can't speak for all places. But I agree with you. And then at the same time, we can be like you said with those seed oils is like we can demonize one food or we can demonize like all these things which could be worse for our health, both mental, emotional, physical, than this neutral idea that you're saying it's not just one thing, it's all of the factors, it's like the
Yeah.
holistic self. So how do you think, this is kind of a deep question, but how do you think we navigate, let's say, food allergies and the world that we live in and trying to take care of ourselves when there are so many factors, whether we know them and we're aware of them, like let's say the chemical ingredients in Doritos, and nothing against Doritos, but you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
versus like oh, now I'm thinking about people listening to this are like, oh, I should get tested. Yeah, maybe this is why I have an unexplained headache every morning. Or, like
Yeah.
how do we navigate this in an empowering way where we're not like just overwhelmed with fear because it's scary. It can be
Yeah.
scary. How do we
Okay.
do this?
There is a way to do it. Number one, you have to determine the hard rules versus the soft rules. So in my case, for example, if I'm allergic to a food or a food causes a reaction, hard pass, right? I don't care what it is. I don't care how organic it is. You know who makes me mad? The angry vegans. They make me so angry because they go online and they demonize food and they harass people on the internet and they like
Right.
throw a big old fit. And I'm over here going, you realize most vegan foods can actually kill me. And you're over here
Yeah,
saying it's
right.
the only way for people to live. Like, dude, take that nonsense somewhere else and understand there is a nuance to every single person.
Absolutely. I agree
And
with you.
that's kind of what I mean by this. So we've
Okay.
got the hard rules and the soft rules. So foods that cause you harm, hard pass, they are out. I don't care if they're organic or if they're engineered. I don't care what it is. It could be an Oreo or it could be like that organic company that makes wannabe Oreos. If both kinds make you feel bad, they're both out. Okay.
Absolutely.
Period. They're out. That's our first thing. The next thing is obviously getting tested and responding well to your test, keeping the journal. Okay. The next thing is taking advantage of the freebies, as some people like to say. So there are basically five pillars to health. This is like my own little concept that I've coined at this point, but I talk about it a lot. And it's air, water, food, movement, medicine. Medicine being anything prescribed or over the counter, or anything injected into you, right? How you choose to look at these five pillars is really important because when we look at developed nations, Western worlds, etc., and you have everybody's that's like so sick, sicker than we've ever been in the history of written history, versus people who live in the middle of a jungle, right? We're all humans, we're all the same species, yet the jungle people are way less sick, right? What's the difference? Those five pillars: air, water, food, movement, medicine. That's it. That's really the biggest difference. So get yourself a basic air purifier just to start. I mean, yeah, okay, you can get like the more expensive ones, and I can tell you about the more expensive ones because I've used them all. Or you can get like an air doctor, right? Whatever makes you feel good. Get an air purifier, put one in your house, clean your air. Next, get like a reverse osmosis water filter thingamajigger. Purify your water. These are little things that you can do without actively thinking about it,
Yeah.
right? Like, because
Yeah.
like a water purifier, you don't have to like manually purify it every time. You install it,
Yeah.
walk away, and every time you turn it on,
Hmm.
it's automatically being purified,
Yeah.
right? So these are like the little baby things you can do. Swap out toxic cookware for non-toxic cookware. Swap out toxic plastic containers for glass containers. These are like the very little baby steps you can do. Make sure you go for a walk every day. Ideally, within an hour of eating, go for at least a 10-minute walk. I'm not telling you to go run a 5K. I just want you to go for like a 10-minute walk, do a couple laps around the block, get your body moving, help your digestion, right? Get enough sleep. Almost everything I'm listing is free. Okay, not the cookware, but everything else is pretty much free.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're doing all these little free things and give yourself like 6 months to do it. Every month, choose one thing, just one. And after 6 months, we've tackled all these little things, right? Now, the next big thing to tackle is just making food swaps for yourself that make you feel good. Maybe at this point, you're feeling great and you don't want to swap anything. Perfect. Don't swap anything else. You're done. If you feel like, yeah, I got some wiggle room, now we start looking at like the things you know are engineered: ice cream, cookies, cake, engineered foods, right? Swap it for the better version. So if you love cookies and cream ice cream, go get some organic cookies and cream ice cream. It's still ice cream, it's still sugary, it's still delicious. It's just got, less of the stuff in it. And what you'll find is I've had a lot of people tell me this, that once they start making those swaps, it is so much easier to stop when they're satisfied versus like just
Mhm.
consuming for the sake of consuming, right? And that will actually have an impact on your health, on your joints, cardiovascular system, all these different systems, because we're not overloading you with like sugar all day,
Mhm.
right? Because
Mhm.
ultimately, sugar all day is not good for you, okay? But you got to baby step your way out of it because you didn't get yourself into it overnight. You're not getting out of it overnight. So just make some key swaps. And maybe swap like your salad dressing, right? Like it's little things that add up.
Mm.
And so give yourself 6 months for that. So after the course of a year, we've gone through, we've given ourselves some hard boundaries. We've said no to certain things. And then we just started making all these little changes. We responded to any tests that we took. Maybe you learned you needed to do some vitamins, or maybe you've learned that detoxing is going to be good for you and you got yourself a little red light home sauna thingamajig set up and you do your sauna every morning. Like whatever it looks like for you, give yourself a year to just baby step your way through it while keeping your food journal the whole time. And after a year, reflect, right? And the thing too is going back to that idea of like hard rule versus soft rule. That's kind of where 80-20 lifestyle comes in, right? If your healing journey, okay, well, let me take a step back. If you're knocking on death's door like I was, your healing journey has to be incredibly strict. You're knocking at death's door, right? Time is up. There's no more playtime, right? If, however, you're like somewhere in the middle, or maybe the journey's kind of short, do the 80-20 lifestyle. It should not be so obsessive and so big in your life that you can't do anything else. If your friends are like, hey, we're going to a concert this weekend and we wanted to get like some juicy Lucy burgers on the way, are you in? Don't be like, nope, I can't do it. I'm on my healing journey. Like, no, like go
Yeah.
hang out with your friends, have the burger. One burger is not going to kill you. Okay. I
No,
won't tell you about the
it's
dude that it actually happened to because there actually is this one dude. It literally did kill him, but there were circumstances involved.
not. Of
And
course.
most likely those aren't your circumstances. So go eat the burger with your friends,
Yeah.
right? And if like the idea of the burger bothers you that much, like, I don't know, do the burger with the lettuce bun instead of the burger bun bit, or have like the apple slices instead of French fries on the side. Like there are little swaps you can still make and still go out with your friends and have the burger and have a good time and go to the concert and, you know, breathe in firework dust and oh, you know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
for
yeah.
example, I love cars. I love cars, trucks, things that go fast, things that are like big and beefy and like, I love it, right? And I had never heard of this before. You've probably never heard of it either. Have you ever heard of a tire like rubber burning contest?
No.
Exactly, right? I'd never heard of it, but I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. I'm going to go. I breathed in so much toxic air dust that day. It took me like weeks to recover, but I
But
had
it
a
was
good
worth
time.
it. Yeah, it was
It
worth
was so
it.
good. I got some good videos. And let me tell you, one dude's engine caught fire during the thing. It was amazing, right? It was so cool. But I would have missed that opportunity if I had been like, oh, but I'm allergic to the whole world and I
Yeah,
can't do
yeah,
anything, blah,
yeah,
blah, blah,
yeah.
blah, blah, all the things, right? And
Uh-huh.
that's kind of the point.
Yeah,
Hard soft rule,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
If you
right.
have if it's taking up so much of your time that you're not living, believe it or not, you're not actually healing. You're just sort of
Absolutely.
you're you're
Yes.
like you're like doing this thing that looks like healing, but it's actually not. It's
And
like
that
faux healing,
and that
right?
goes back to like we're whole people, we're social creatures. We need fun, we need pleasure, we need to connect with the world, we need to go out. Like all of that stuff is involved. So
Yes.
yeah, that I like that hard soft rule concept. And I think I have that in my life as well. I just maybe haven't put that framework to it. And
Yeah.
so I appreciate that. And so I ask my guests one question. I ask all my guests one question, and I kind of can guess where you might go with this, your answer. But before I ask you that question, where can people find you? Where would you like people to find you, and how can you support people in their own journeys?
If you visit theallergychef.com, like the word allergy, the word chef, theallergychef.com, that's where you can find me. You can even find links to social media. So on Instagram, I'm at the allergy chef, not the word at, but the little at symbol thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, YouTube, The Allergy Chef. Like those are the top two places in terms of social media. I even have a Pinterest that's The Allergy Chef. If you're
Cool.
into Pinterest, I don't know if people
Cool.
are into that these days, but go to theallergychef.com. There's a whole knowledge base there. So many resources. Use the menu system. I've tried to like make the menus make sense. If you're newly diagnosed, I actually have a full free newly diagnosed course. I even have a free
Ooh.
manual you can download. It's like 100 pages. It tells you
Wow.
everything you wish you knew the day you were diagnosed. It's a whole story
Wow.
as to why it exists, and it's all free. In fact, I had a friend once tell me, she's like, "Why are you giving all this away for free?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm not going to gatekeep this information because this is the information that saves lives, literally. We're
I
giving
love
this away for
that.
free.
I love
If
that.
people want to buy cookbooks and stuff, great. That part they can pay for. I love it when people buy the books and support the mission, whatever. But I am not going to gatekeep information that could save your life.
I love
Like, who
that.
am I to do that? Do you know what I mean?
That's
That's
so
not cool.
cool. Like cool. Yeah. So check out
Yeah. So
theallergychef.com.
theallergychef.com, that's where people can find me and find all the best tools and resources that I have available.
Thank you so much. I love that. Okay, so the last question, if you could share one message of health with the world, with the entire world, what would it be? What would
It's
you
got to
like?
be those 5 pillars, right?
Okay.
Like, take care of your 5 pillars. If you nurture those 5 pillars, by default, you're doing all the other stuff I already told you to do. Do you know?
And
Like,
can you
because
say
if
them one more
you're
time?
okay, so 5 pillars: air, water, food, movement, medicine, medicine being over the counter, blah, blah, all the things. See, here's the thing: you weren't born deficient in Tylenol. You weren't born deficient in prescription medications, right?
Yeah.
There are a few people who were literally born with a genetic compromised system, and they do need to take something to like make up for that. Outside of those people, the rest of us, we were not born deficient in all of this stuff. So the
Hmm.
question is, are you putting a band-aid on it? Or like, are you too far gone? Like, what's the story? Because if there is a way to course correct, you got to chase that down. You owe it to yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so if you are nurturing those 5 pillars, you pretty much covered everything. Because if you're not feeling good, you're doing the tests, right? If you need more movement, you're going for those walks.
Mhm.
You're putting in like a basic RO system and you're getting clean water. You're getting a clean air system, air filter thing. You might even put some plants in your house because they say, what is it? Indoor air is like some of the most toxic air you could ever breathe. Like if you're not, you know, letting your airflow happen inside your house.
Yeah.
So clean up those 5 pillars, and for most people, they're on a road to health and wellness.
I
There are
love
always going to be people like me that are the outliers, that are like these mega complex cases and require a lot of intervention and all that sort of stuff. Um, but the good news is most people aren't me, right?
it.
Like, like there's literally like less than 1,000 of us across the globe. Like these types of conditions are so incredibly rare.
And thank you for using your experiences, your rare experience to help so many people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
my
thank you
pleasure.
so much for sharing your story, sharing your knowledge this past hour. And I know that I've been onto your website several times and there's so much there. So if you have any questions, reach out, look up the free resources and
Yeah. And even too, like if you realize that you can't have certain foods, I actually just published some of the most groundbreaking, innovative articles on how to substitute specific types of ingredients. So, like
mm,
for example, a lot of people realize they can't digest beans very well. But a lot of times when you look up like legume substitutes, bean substitutes, people are just telling you other beans to use. I'm like, duh. What if you can't have any of them,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I went down like this 6 hour writing rabbit hole and told you every which way, like how to creatively use like Japanese sweet potato to make it
Mhm.
mimic the texture of a bean and how to fold it into a chili, like all these different ways that you can substitute foods that most people never think to do. Um, so again, like newly diagnosed, I got you covered. You need food substitutes, I got you covered. You need food recommendations, I got you. Like it's all there. So check it out.
Thank you so much, Kathlena the Allergy Chef. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.